up. I mean, I don't know that this is a necessary or intricate part of our revenue stream to achieve our environmental goals in this area. So I just, I'm hesitant about, collecting for the city. And if it can phase out over a couple of years, maybe that's a path that we're looking at in the future. That's just me.
But, just to ask on that one, Tori, the actual fee that you pay is part of what makes it an incentive to remember to bring your bags. And so to quote, I don't think you're saying go back from 20 cents to 10 cents, which is the new state minimum, or is it to try to go to zero from our side and just let the state 10 cents be the disincentive? But I think the disincentive is really important. It kind of reminds you, oh, okay, this time I'll do it, yeah, because I forgot my bags. Oh, yeah, this time I'll do it, I forgot my bags. And then the third time, you're like, I'm going to remember my bags,
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm not actually asking for any changes to this. 20 cents, I think, is the appropriate disincentive and hopefully the reminder that we want. But yeah, overall, it's really about the behavioral change and not the revenue that's in here.
I agree with that point entirely.
I just don't want us to be like, tying some of our actions to this revenue stream, and maybe in the future it can go away. Hey, I'm just.
That's a great clarification. That's what I thought you were.
I'm just super excited that, this is going to all stores. This is where we should be headed, and so I'm just excited about that. But I just want, one cautionary for me is that I'm not looking for a revenue stream here. Any other comments?
Yeah, I see this as an opportunity to open the door for conversations for a wider influence on the environment with Kroger, City Market, for packaging of materials in what is it, BPI? Compostable materials instead of recyclable, instead of plastic, for vegetables and produce. So as we get closer to 2024, I think it's an opportunity that could have a wider effect than just in Aspen. I support this, and I am appreciative of the electronic recycling that this helps to support. Thank you for your work on this. And this just lines us with I guess I'd rather say that the rest of the state is getting aligned with what Aspen has done for a long time.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please, for ordinance number 6?
Councillor Doyle.
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein.
Yes.
Councillor Mesereau.
Yes.
Councillor Richards.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes. And I'll
you,
stand and
Council.
applaud that one because
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's good work. Thank you, guys.
So Ward and I both live within distance of the next item, and we'll be recusing ourselves from this discussion. Thank you for allowing us to vote on that last one without leaving the room and coming back. Appreciate it, and everyone else have a great evening.
Thanks, Rachel.
Buenas noches.
It's an important item.
We had a lot of discussion.
I enjoyed sitting here thinking that he was literally outside the door just going like, what's going on? Oh, he did? Oh, okay.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Night, Rachel.
Gentlemen, ladies. Arriva, ciao.
Be good. Take care of yourself.
Hey, I thought that was a 4-hour hat.
It's morphing into my favorite hat.
Okay, okay.
It's not that I'm
Okay, technically,
supporting 4-hour
Credit for time in.
you punched in earlier than I thought. Got it.
Our next item is resolution number 38. This is 570 Spruce Street.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Tory, Jeff Barnhill, City Planner. This is for a variance request for 570 Spruce Street. Ryan is going to do a short presentation giving a little more background on the site and everything, and then I will do a presentation following him. If you want to go ahead.
Council, it's Ryan Doremus. I'm representing Rob Guile, who's the owner of the property. This is a request for a variance for both a setback and a height variance. As we talk about the location, it's located 570 Spruce on Spruce Street, located between Centennial Hunter Creek, and many other residential homes. We're requesting the replacement of an existing area well with a new stairwell that will provide a safe and convenient access to the subgrade areas. This request was a request based on the municipal code that allows for us to request this through special conditions and circumstances which are unique to the parcel, building, or structure, which do not apply to other parcels, structures, or buildings within the same zone district, and which is not a result from the actions of the applicant. As we go through this, the home itself is, you can see, located directly off of Spruce. The garage door and to the right of it is locating the area well that is in question. As you guys can see, it's in pretty poor condition currently.
Quick question. In the middle photo, is that 560 Spruce?
Directly to the right,
Right.
that is correct. Yeah, I'll go into more in depth on the proximity to the buildings as well.
Thanks.
But you can see both buildings are in fairly close proximity, but the area well that is in question is an existing railroad tie area well that we requested a replacement early on. So as you can see here, some additional photos just to show the existing building and location for additional reference points. So moving in, the house was built in 1975, which was prior to the subdivision even being created. As part of that, in 1989, this property was annexed into the city of Aspen, as that is a portion of the zoning information that will be in question as part of this. And in 2006, Rob purchased the property. As part of some of the process we've been through to get to the stage that we're at, we requested an emergency repair permit in 2021. As part of that repair, we were required to provide structural drawings, information that was needed for building department to approve it. During that process, the moratorium occurred, which we were going to have to modify the amount of wall area that was exposed, which was affecting square footage, which in theory then put this project on hold through the moratorium process. So looking at the schedule, we started in September of 21 in terms of process with the city. Moving forward, we went through the moratorium and went through a pre-application process in 2022, February, to start that process. Received an application which was basically put on hold until the moratorium was lifted in August. At that time, we re-asked the city to apply for the same application, which some items were modified during that time when Jeff provided the new application. So we're now here in March 2023, looking at over almost 2 years of time that we've been dealt with to try to resolve a pretty minor discrepancy that we're looking for. Some of the things to discuss on this I think is important as we like to talk about our community and our culture. Rob Guile has been here and his family's been here since 1971. Rob was a graduate of Aspen High School. Rob's son was also born here. Bridger is here in the audience, as well as he attended school here as well. Rob purchased the property in 2006, and I think it's an important note to point out that Bridger, his son, is a member of the U.S. ski team and represents Aspen as a community, as well as also he is involved heavily with the AVSC program. Going into specifics about the property with regards to nonconformities and items in which we would say that this property has restrictions and items that do not comply with the current zone district, I think is an important feature to our argument at hand. When we look at some of the zone district requirements, these were based upon an annexation of this property previous or after the property was built and the subdivision was already created. So what we can say is in reviewing some of the zone district dimensional requirements, there were a couple items that were not in conformance based on the R6 zone district. Those specifically are the minimum lot width. The minimum lot width is 60 feet, which is standard in most subdivisions within the R6. This one does not comply by almost 20 feet. It's 19 feet, which it does not comply by. So it's 41 feet in width. As part of that, the front yard is met and the rear yard is met, but the side yard is not met due to the minimum width of the lot. As part of the annexation in 1989, there was an adjustment to the zone district setback requirements for R6, which requires 10 feet of side yard setback for each side, rather than an R6 zone district, which is a combined yard setback that has a minimum side yard setback of 5. So there is restrictions upon the annex properties that are different than other R6 zone districts. As well as the height of the current property is already above the allowed height. Regardless of request or not, the height is based to the bottom of an area well based on current code for height measurement. That is an important feature because we are currently working within an existing area well that is in place, and the measurement is to the bottom of that. Other than that, in terms of the distance between buildings, percentage of open space, all of these are met. So we've complied in the ways of what we were imagined, with the exception of some of these minor things that lead to the problem that we have at hand. Looking at the survey, you can see that the problem we have with this subdivision is that we have properties that overline and overlap property lines that are not part of this current condition. We have the neighboring property of 560 Spruce, which has a portion of its building encroaching onto our property line, as well as 570 Spruce encroaches onto the other properties. This is an important feature because the subdivision is currently, the property lines do not align in a way that is contextually consistent with our zoning code and how we would normally do a new subdivision. So the important feature of this is there is conformity issues regardless of the situation based on this being annexed into the city. Looking into this, you can see that with the setback requirements that would be required, we currently would be non-conforming, and the visual on the left shows the condition as is currently in the existing state, and on the right would be the proposed request, which we would be minimizing and reducing the nonconformities by accommodating a setback that would allow for the area staircase to meet the requirements for a variance to the setback, excuse me. Going into this, one thing that I think is important to point out is we can show here that the existing area well is above the minimum required size by the city of Aspen. This is an existing area well. It's in conformance with, it has never been adjusted. It's legally non-conforming. And what we're showing here is that that current area well is about 39 square feet. The proposed addition would adjust the square footage of the disturbance to 63 square feet, which is roughly 24 square feet of adjustment, which is about the size of a twin mattress. If you want to put it into comparison, that's a fairly minimal amount of impact. It's about 3 by 5 is the rough size. Looking at this, you can see here by the request, we're moving the setback from what would be required of 10 to a request of 7. Now, the important feature here that we would like to really address is the ask for a variance is not to modify the entire setback of all the property. This is specifically for one portion that would be in the benefit of Rob and his family to allow for safety and exit out of the lower space in the most efficient way possible, rather than a minimum area well that is not as necessarily as safe as a staircase that would be provided. This is an area that is of low impact to the community. It's not in a visual spot that would be visual from the street. And this is an area that would benefit both Rob and the neighboring community. Moving on to show you some elevation portions of this. What we're looking at here is the existing area well that was on the left. You can see that it has 3 current windows, and what we would be requesting is to turn one of those windows into a door to allow proper egress out of that area. The adjustment to the amount of area that would be exposed is of 37 square feet. Realistically, this is less than a sheet of plywood of modification to an area. This is, if you think about the disturbance we're talking about, it's a very small portion. And I think the most important piece here is, one, we're not modifying ridge lines or heights to the building, so we're not modifying the height of the structure. Two, we're not modifying the basement level or dropping the basement to any lower than it currently is. All we're requesting is for a proper egress out of the basement to allow for his son to use that room in a space that he can use and feel safe that he can get out of. As that goes on, I think it's important to note, we have had letters of support from both the neighbors, as shown here, every neighbor that is surrounding the property, from both the Centennial subdivision, Jeff Tassi and Molly McGuire, LJS Bomber, and I think the most important point is 560 Spruce is in support of this letter, which is at the bottom left. They are the most directly impacted by this request, and they have shown a letter of support with no objections to the request. It's also to note that they have had variances to their property to allow for proper egress out of the second story with 0 lot line of setback. So it is something in this area that there is areas that we need to provide proper egress out of a very tight scenario, and this is why we're asking for this request. It's also very important for us to note we have an extensive letter of support from community members that feel that this is an important matter, that we're standing up to be able to say that this isn't really about more than just the fact that we're asking for something, for a better situation for Rob, who's a long-standing local. He's been here for 50 years? Yeah. 50 years. And we want him to be able to continue to use his property and be able to use it in a way that he and his son can continue to come. And that's an important feature that I think is something to take care of and think about. So that is my presentation. I know Rob has a couple points that he would like to make before you have your presentation. And Rob, go ahead.
Okay. Ryan, wow, nice presentation. I remember 4 years ago when I was the best man in his parents' wedding. So the history in Aspen and Doremus's and everybody around here is deep. First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking their time to review my variance. I also want to thank you for taking the time to serve our town. Bridger and I skied today. It is so much fun for us to ski together on Aspen Mountain. We've been doing this since he was 3 years old. Bridger has been representing Aspen since he was 5 years old, from skiing in Warren Miller films with his unforgettable long blonde hair to his current status on the U.S. ski team. Now that Bridger is 23, I'm trying to find a creative housing solution for Bridger so that he can continue to represent Aspen. We also walked to this hearing, as we either walk or ride our bikes to town. Anyways, Bridger and I love this valley. It has been our family's home for over 50 years. I love the people, the town, and enjoying the surrounding mountains. You may think I'm just another property owner looking for a special exemption. Instead of taking from the town, I think the approval of this variance will serve Aspen well and add to its community. I hope you believe it as well. I believe in my heart that this small stairway will be a benefit to our community. I have the support from my neighbors and fellow residents, and for this I'm grateful. I started this project back in 2020, $50,000 of expenses, countless hours of my time, Ryan's time, the city's time, countless no's from the Aspen Zoning Department, persistence for what I think is the best and highest use of my basement for the town of Aspen and my family. So here we are in front of City Council for a variance to code height. After talking to my fellow residents and neighbors, I began to ask the question, why not? The support of our fellow residents has been overwhelming in favor of the variance. I do not want to just tell you why I think the variance is good for Aspen. Rather, I want to share the opinions of our fellow Valley residents. And these quotes were up on Ryan's presentation. I don't know if you got to read them, but they're amazing. As 50-year resident Tim Cooney said in his letter of support, if he built this entrance, it would somehow add, quote, add a few extra feet to the bureaucratic measurement that determines the height of his house, when in actuality, the basement would not be any deeper, nor the house any higher than it is now. And as Andy Mill, whose family moved to Aspen in 1960, sent me an email saying, "Your fight is one everyone in the Aspen Valley is fighting, but yours has a special ring to it. I can't imagine your quest not being fully accepted by all." As lifelong resident of Aspen, Roger Maroltz said in an email to City Council, "There is a lot to be said for enabling local parents who can house their local adult children through their own means in a way the young adult can live independently in this town to do so. And importantly, it is one less new young community member to tax the affordable housing program." And as Gail Schwartz said in an email to me, "Since housing is such a critical issue these days, I don't understand why the city is being so difficult." Then, in an article about the upcoming day-long event in Aspen, which we were talking about here, Solving the Housing Crisis, a regional summit in equitable solutions, Gail was quoted, "The housing crisis in the region has come to a head." And for more local sentiment, you can read all the 32 letters of support and the 5 letters from the neighbors, and these range from 6th-generation Aspenites to first-year residents. I have the support of all my neighbors and various residents of the neighborhood. Please see the enclosed letters from Centennial, Aspen Spruce, LLC, Jeff Tossi, and LJ Ersbommer. Please see the enclosed letters from residents of the neighborhood, Nick Edel, Miles Mass, Ed Cross, Dave Stapleton, Jeff McIntyre, Tom Letty, and Scotty Cooper. I have letters of support from 6th-generation Aspenites who know the importance of keeping families in Aspen. Terry Connor, Carolyn Cerise Barabee, Roger Marolt, and Dave Stapleton. I have the letters of support from Aspenite whose families moved to Aspen in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They also value keeping families in Aspen. Andy Mill, Ben Hall, Dan Sterling, Dave Guthrie, Drew Doherty, Ed Cross, Jess Peterson, Lorna Peterson, Julie Melville, Mark Patterson, Nikki Dell, Tim Cooney, Jim Giles, Steve Gonzalez, Tom Letty, and Scotty Cooper. I have letters of support from Aspen Olympians, Andy Mill and Chris Klug. I have letters of support from members of the U.S. Ski Team on the importance of Aspen being represented on the U.S. Ski Team, Eric Resnick and Kyle Negamir. I have letters of support from local builders that have worked on my house stating the best and safest use of the current basement is a separate entrance with a stairway, Jeff McIntyre and Dave Guthrie. I have letters of support from local AVSC families, Miles Mass, Scott Monroe, and Chad Oppenheim. In summary, the community has rallied behind my effort to house my family on the property that I already own at no cost to our residents and no change to the existing structure. As Andy Mills said, this case has a special ring to it because it's Bridger representing Aspen at an international level. I truly believe this is a benefit to the town of Aspen at no cost to its residents. Thank you for your time and your service to our community. Together, we can make a dent in the current housing crisis, one resident and one family at a time. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, guys. All right. Again, Jeff Barnhill, city planner. Ryan did a good job of walking us through the property and the issues that it faces. This will be a little redundant, a couple slides. As you can see, that's the location of the property. It's got a single-family residence with an accessory structure at the south end of the property.
So we don't have to come back to it. Will you go back to that slide real quickly?
Yeah.
560 is part of the building is over the property line, not just in the setbacks, but it's over the property line?
It is.
Thank you.
And as you can see, the R6 zone district's requirements for a lot of this size, 10 feet front yard setback, a minimum of 10 feet side yard setbacks with 20 feet combined side yard setbacks, 10 feet rear yard setback, and then 25 feet maximum height. The variance request is for the stairwell that leads to the lower level, and the specific variances requested are a 7 feet where 10 feet is required west side yard setback, a combined side yard setback of 17 feet, and the height variance would push from the bottom of the stairwell would be 31 feet, 6.5 inches. It is important to note, normally variances would go to Board of Adjustment, but because of the measurement of height that we do, that pushed it to city council. It is important to note, as Ryan mentioned, they are not changing the height of the building as it stands. Again, this is the existing, as you can see, 10 feet on the sides. The building is non-conforming. Here it is with the 7-foot setback request. The red line is the existing setbacks.
And when you say the building is non-conforming, you're talking about the setbacks and the, nothing else?
Correct. The setbacks, and you can see on the left side of the photo, a bit of the building does go over the property line on that side as well. I think we can all agree this bit of Spruce Street is a little funky. And here would be the proposed height as measured from the bottom of the stairwell. Again, it would be, I believe, 31 feet, 6.5 inches. Standards applicable to variances. Variances are difficult to get because you have to prove that you have a hardship. It has to be generally consistent with the purposes, goals, objectives, and standards of the land use code and title. It must be the minimum variance for the reasonable use of the parcel, building, or structure. Literal interpretation would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other parcels in the same zone district. And in determining whether an applicant's rights would be deprived, are there special conditions or circumstances which are unique to the parcel, building, or structure? Or would granting the variance not confer any special privilege denied to other parcels, building, or structures in the same zone district? Staff does not support the proposed variance for the following reasons. Mainly that this will not cause the applicant an unnecessary hardship. Staff believes that this is just a mere inconvenience. Staff believes reasonable use of the parcel is already established with the developed single-family residence. Changing to a stairwell instead of a window well is a man-made condition that creates an inconvenience for the subject property. The stairwell is not required by building code for egress. If it were required by building code for egress, I think it'd be a different conversation. The applicant can create a compliant window well in that location with no variances and could proceed to permit. And there is approximately 1,500 square feet of buildable area still on the site with no variances. And the increased development would further constrain the development on the west side of the lot, as we saw with the 560 building. Alternatively, should council find a hardship exists on the property, council should motion to approve Resolution 38, Series of 2023. If you guys have any questions, we are happy to answer. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just could we please get a clarification from the city attorney? If approval is sought, what is the required vote, since we only have 3 members present, just so there's clarity for everyone before we get into discussion?
That is a good point. It would require a unanimous vote of these 3 council members.
Thank you.
No problem. My question is, so basically what you're asking for is just a better form of egress from the basement.
Safer.
Better, safer, quicker.
Can I speak to that real quick? So in regards to the safety feature, it's been proven that an area stairwell is much safer than the minimum requirement for area egress that's provided by the city and the building code. So it's proven, especially on getting out of fire conditions in areas that are of tight conditions, a small 3x3 area well is likely not to be the best for exiting. It's more for access for fire department access. So in terms of safety, a stairwell from the lowest level in the form of egress is the best for life safety, correct?
Completely understand that. I guess my question is there an alternative place where a stairway could be built that where a variance would not be required?
Speaking on where the location of the basement is currently, its proximity to the front entry would be inside of the setback as well. The other side would be in the driveway, which is front facing, which is not required, or it's not allowed by zoning code as well. And so this is the area that had an existing access point, which would mean that it seemed to be the best location for that area.
I understand that. I guess,
So it's not on the backside of the house. There's no access to the basement from the backside of the house, if that makes sense.
okay. But my question is still, is there an opportunity to put in a stairway that would not require a variance?
No, not an interior staircase, is that what you're referring to?
No, an exterior staircase, so,
Not based on the current setback requirements.
thank you.
Do you have any questions at this time? It is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. This is a public hearing on resolution number 38. Any members of the public that wish to speak this evening? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table. Skippy?
Sure. I appreciate you guys coming in, and sorry that the process has been so long. I also appreciate, all the family history and the intention behind it, and I genuinely appreciate that. And in land use, I'm very full circle back to P&Z all of a sudden. But in a land use case, that stuff is not stuff that we can really consider. And the reason for that is that those rules are there to protect the resident, but also the community at large. And so if you guys sold the place tomorrow or 20 years or 50 years from now, we've got to think about community impact. All of that said, and sort of agnostic to your particular situation, I think there's a very obvious site constraint. I do think that there is a temporal and site-specific hardship. I don't see a negative impact to the community. There's not an objective change to the experience of any neighbors, despite what their letters may say, in terms of height or otherwise. The question that follows is, could a future or current owner do something that would hamper other community goals? And so, when I try to project into what some future person might do, the worst thing that could happen is a bifurcation of the property, potentially without the city knowing. And would that be a negative impact? I think that would only be a positive impact to the community to have an additional smaller footprint housing area. And I'm not suggesting anyone should do anything illegal, but I just don't see a downside to the community. And so I think, this is a technicality in the code that's there for right reason, that works 99.9% of the time. But I'm comfortable approving a variance on this.
Thanks, Skippy. John, any comments?
Yeah, I'm going to support this moving forward. Just really based on what I know about the neighborhood. It is extremely funky over there. I think I knew some people who lived in this home before you bought it. And with the support of all your neighbors, especially 560 Spruce, whose own home is going over the property line, I don't see it impeding the neighbor in any meaningful fashion. And I agree with what Skippy said. And I agree with what you said, providing a home, one home at a time is an important step in the right direction.
Thanks, John. I agree with what my fellow council members have said here. I'm trying to think back, when have I last disagreed with staff's findings, and I don't know when it is. So I want to just first say that I support staff in their findings here, and I think that they've done their job thoroughly and well. But I agree with some of the statements that were made that I do think there is hardship on this lot. I'm still digesting how it zigzags between different properties, including their buildings. But with that being said, I think I'm hearing support up here for variances. Yes, Jim?
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, may I ask Jeff to go back a couple of slides? I want to make sure, wait a minute. No, you're going back too quick. Go. Yeah, this is the slide that's important. The stat.
These bigger on a later slide.
Okay.
Do you want to see the whole wording? Or?
Yeah. I want to make the point.
Here we go, if you guys can read that.
Well, I want to make the point, and it says this here. In order to authorize a variance, dimensional requirements, decision-making body shall make a finding of the following circumstances exist. And you need to make a finding that those exist, which my request, if you're going to approve this, that any motion to approve resolution, it's a resolution, right?
Yes.
Resolution 38. If you make a motion to approve Resolution 38, you make a statement
Include those?
to include the finding of those items.
Okay. Thank you.
The resolution itself has conditions that are related to the approval, but,
Understood.
yeah, we request your motion
Okay.
to address those findings.
All right, and we have it put before us that Resolution 38, yes, is the approval. Okay. Therefore, I would ask for a motion for Resolution number 38, and please include these citations as Jim has asked for.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 38, noting that. It's on and in my face. I will make a motion to approve Resolution 38, noting that the council and those voting on this have found Clause 1, 2, and 3 of Part A of Section 26.314.040 to be true and met.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a roll call vote.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes. Thank you.
Just another quick comment. I'd also like to point out, this is the first time I believe I have gone against staff recommendations.
It's
I've
okay.
done it before.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done on the presentation.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging in there, too.
With that, we could take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote for adjournment? Yeah, I don't have to wait.
That's right.
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yeah.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes.
Bye now.
Thank you, Grassroots. And Amy, we need to get you a microphone, so you don't have to yell.
Yeah, you can yell at us through the glass.
We need to talk back. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Nicole.